joined by Andrew Griffith, the Shadow Business and Trade Secretary, is here with me. Very good morning to you.
Good morning.
First, on the announcement that we were speaking to Ed Miliband about, do you support a backing of nuclear power?
Yes, absolutely. We set this in train. We started put spades in the ground on nuclear, the energy security strategy, committed to get these nuclear power plants going. In fact, our ambition was slightly higher at 24 gigawatts of nuclear. Of nuclear. The key thing is not to lose any more time. I mean, we've lost almost a year on things like Sizewell C. The government's got to get on and do it. We all know that this is going to take between 9 and 12 years. That itself is too long. If there are reforms to regulations and planning processes that would speed that up, that would be helpful. But in the meantime, and that is really important, the meantime, you can't just give speeches about nuclear. In the meantime, energy costs are higher. We have the highest industrial energy of almost any developed nation, which is making our businesses uncompetitive. And households will know that their energy bills, far from falling £300, have actually gone up by more than 100.
Why then, with this sort of perspective on the time it takes, why did Hinkley Point, which your government obviously initiated, take so long?
Well, look, it took a long time to restart a programme. I'm not attributing particular culpability, but the Labour government in '97 cancelled all of the forward-looking nuclear programmes. Others around the world did similar. And that meant that the whole nuclear supply chain, the planning processes, the nuclear inspectorate, all of those took a very long time to restart. Added impetus, of course, from the energy crisis caused by Russia's invasion of Ukraine. That's produced a new consensus, but we need to get on and do that.
Pleased to see a British company, Rolls-Royce, selected for what I guess many people are suggesting is the long-term future of nuclear, which is small modular reactors.
Absolutely. And again, we started that process. We put the first funding in place for a small modular reactor competition, and I'm really glad that Rolls-Royce has won that. Again, we need to get on, and the government need to place the actual orders for the actual modular reactors so that we can build that supply chain and get British jobs going here.
On the topic of the winter fuel payments, is this ultimately a change in policy that you support, that it's being reinstated, but in a mean-tested way?
Look, I don't think we would have done any of those things. We wouldn't have scrapped it capriciously. Remember, the Chancellor, it wasn't part of even a budget cycle. The Chancellor just crossed the road to pick a fight with the nation's pensioners. That's endured a very cold, lean winter for many. There's always a debate, I'm going to be honest, there's always a debate around the balance between universality of getting it to people without them having to fill in forms, often the most vulnerable miss out, and the duty to balance the nation's books and protect the taxpayer. But this is not one of the largest areas of benefits. If you're really serious about the nation's finances, have a proper debate, much more profound debate than the Labour Party is tearing itself over, of welfare reform. The last election, we put forward £12 billion of welfare reform. That would have been a much bigger change in the trajectory. If we're honest, we probably need, in the light of things like the Strategic Defence Review, we need to look at that again and find ways of getting even more people off welfare and into work, help grow the economy.
So just to clarify, but where we're ending up of a sort of means-tested winter fuel payment with some kind of threshold is a good thing?
The restoration of the winter fuel payment to 9 million pensioners is a good thing. I'm not going to be able to write the budget for 3 or 4 years hence now. So it is good that the government has now reversed what we thought and opposed very clearly and volubly every day since they've done that. We've been part of how we forced that reversal. As to what the particular thresholds are, we would have to see in the light of the time. But don't let the government off the hook. Let's be really clear. We would not have done this. This is not a good place to have a debate about welfare reform or balancing the nation's books.
Clearly, it's Tech Week at the moment. The Prime Minister yesterday holding a stage with Jensen Huang, perhaps the great innovator of the last decade. And Jensen Huang suggested we're in a sort of Goldilocks position here and he wants to invest in the UK. Meanwhile, John Gray, the head of Blackstone, one of the biggest private equity companies, echoing a similar sentiment. Pleasing to see those big American companies echoing those sentiments?
Look, as a patriot, this is a wonderful country. We've got so many formidable natural advantages, including in science and tech and the rule of law and the English language. So I want us to succeed, but we've also got to be honest about the things that are holding us back. Yesterday, they talked about infrastructure, and I'm glad that the government's got plans in place to do that. But the biggest piece of infrastructure is allowing businesses to compete successfully. And what the government has done, which is drive 12,000 of the highest contributors, the people who do grow an economy, who do invest, who do take risk overseas, conversations that used to happen in the City of London now taking place in Milan, Miami, Abu Dhabi. We've seen recently the loss of some of our really big successful tech companies like Wise. Sorry, not the complete loss, but they're putting a foot down in other markets, and that's normally the first step at which we start to lose those companies. So I do think there's a vibe shift, and I think the government's perceptual reality of a culture war against wealth creators needs to stop, most obviously in their attack on international investors.
Well, just on that topic, though, I mean, we have to pause and acknowledge that your government started the ball rolling of removing the non-dom status, which is what I think you're pointing at as the biggest trigger for a lot of this.
Well, I was never a fan. The government made that decision. What Rachel Reeves has done, this government, has gone infinitely further. And so without getting into the technicalities, the government started to look again at what's called a non-dom status. And these are people who pay tax here, but they don't pay tax on everything that they own in the world. This government then, in my view, vindictively expended that to every one of their global assets. That's not a fair like-for-like comparison. And, of course, that's had the impact is that people who've loved this country, invested in this country, feel that they have to go and move their residence overseas.
Final quick take on the unemployment data this morning. Ticking up, but very low by historical standards.
Ticking up. I think unemployment is going to be one of the big yardsticks of this government. Every Labour government tends to increase unemployment. We've got an unemployment bill going through Parliament right now, 300 pages of red tape. It's going to really hurt businesses. So let's come back to that. I accept it's ticking up. That's not the right direction. But let's look over time, because I think unemployment, and particularly youth unemployment, is going to be one of the big hallmarks of failure of this government.
Well, we shall see, but 4.6% still relatively low this morning. Thanks so much for stopping by, Andrew Griffith. Always great to see you.